want to talk about how much whiskey I just got on my blazer. Howdy do. How are you, sir?
Man, I'm doing well. How are you?
I am excellent. Nice to be knocking back a little after hours time with you here. Hope we get something delicious to taste on here while we go through this.
Definitely. I'm just pouring mine here. Man.
Oh, I almost just spilled one. Let's not spill any, all right?
It's been like a couple hours since you spilled whiskey last, so.
I'm not wearing any yet, so I'm going to try to keep it that way. So what do we got for them for this after hour session?
Yeah, man. So we've been on kind of a, not a tear, I won't say, but we've been on the path for helping people discover tips for getting better at tasting whiskey, becoming more mindful drinkers, and as kind of a segue into a very special episode that we have next Tuesday. We thought we'd go ahead and dive a little bit deeper. So tips on, kind of becoming more of an advanced drinker. John and I have been talking about this a lot, especially as we've had, companies are starting to get back together and everyone's asking about whiskey and stuff. But I thought that might be a nice quick hitter for tonight.
I like it. Now, when we say advanced drinker, we don't mean putting a straw into a bottle of seagrass and just drinking the whole thing, right? We're talking about, like you said, being more mindful of what we're drinking, enjoying the experience, tasting through the whiskey rather than simply taking one of these and turning it upside down, right?
Yeah. Advanced drinking, I would say, does not relate to consumption.
Most of us got that out of the way in college, right? Or at least that's where we earned our stripes.
I mean, I am tempted to put a straw in seagrass. Like, I won't lie. But it's probably not the best for your health.
No, certainly not. You shouldn't be doing that frequently. How's that?
I can agree with that.
I'm not a doctor, and this is not medical advice, but I don't recommend you do it frequently.
You should, probably not take anything medical from the show, ever.
Also true. Okay, so let's break it down. Let's try to do like a simple 1, 2, 3 kind of approach.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily have to be 3 steps, but what do you say we just sort of break this down into bite-sized pieces as to how we would recommend somebody further their whiskey knowledge and their experience at the same time by becoming a more proficient whiskey taster?
Totally. I'll kick off. So one of my tips, something that I like to do a lot, is have 2 glasses side by side, whether they're similar whiskeys, whether they're super different whiskeys. If you're maybe have a bourbon and a rye, or a bourbon and a rum, or, a single malt and a rye or something, it's fun to compare, and you learn a lot about your palate. I think that is something that people don't do a lot. Like, I wouldn't pour like 2 4-ounce pours next to each other, but pour a little of this and pour a little of that, and just kind of notice how they differ from each other. That's something that I really like to do.
I like that a lot. I think that doing comparisons will be really big. It's something that I really love to do personally, especially when it's something like, for me, comparing like, let's say, an Elijah Craig Barrel Proof batch B of 1 year to batch B of another year.
Yeah.
Or a Stag Junior batch to the next. I really love seeing the differences between the two, and I think it helps you pick up on the nuance. So yeah, compare and enjoy. I think that's a really, really good tip for the whiskey drinkers looking to maybe educate themselves and grow as a taster.
Definitely. And and you're kind of the king of the side by side. Like, you're comparing past years of everything to past years of, or the new year and the new release, which I think is fun. But yeah, so what about you?
I think one thing that, and this is something that I talk with my buddies about frequently, is you have the guy who enjoys whiskey, or the gal who enjoys having a glass of whiskey. They really like it, but they feel either intimidated by or uncertain with tasting notes. They, whether it's through sorcery or something else, they sort of have this idea that there's no way you could taste all these things in a whiskey. And my tip there is pretty simple. Talk it out. Take what it is that's going on in the glass and talk about it. Like, I like this, and that's a great place to start. Do you like it? Do you hate it? What do you like about it? Is it good because it's sweet? Is it good because it's savory? And sort of starting on those roads makes it easier to articulate what's going on in the glass and then across your palate.
Definitely. I think that's a great one. And, you learn a lot by just trying to put things into words. Like, your mind speaks very differently than your voice. So I think that's a great option.
Yeah, and once you get the ball rolling, I mean, it's easy to be like, oh, I like this because it's sweet, and it sort of reminds me of this time that I had, a bear claw at a bakery. It'll give you something to sort of tie it to, and I think having that foundation in your memory will sort of bring it into your present reality.
Definitely. I think that's great. The next one that I have is something I notice. I always notice it with friends that are just getting whiskey. Don't feel rushed. Don't get FOMO. Don't get that fear of missing out. If you only want to buy one bottle a month and try it out, if you only want to buy 2 bottles a month, but the first moment that says like, oh, someone walks up and says, oh, you got to buy this. Oh, you definitely need this. Like, oh, you're going to be sorry you didn't buy this. Check that at the door. Don't rush it, and like don't freak out if your buddy tells you need this very specific single barrel of Eagle Rare. Like, if you're not there yet and you're not like super enthused, like don't go head over heels too quick. That's a big one. I see a lot of people get almost so worried about getting that new release that they actually don't know anything about, that they like forget what bourbon is about in the beginning. That's just me.
I'm with you on that one. It's easy to get caught up in the rat race too. It'd be like, oh man, I saw online this one is supposed to be the best. I gotta go get this. Like, just because somebody says it's the best doesn't mean it is. I mean, you and I both say plenty of things that we think are the best, and it doesn't make it true for anybody other than us.
Yeah, and we say it joking all the time, like, oh man, it blew my budget. But if you're getting into bourbon and you only want to spend $150, like don't be pressured to double it or triple or quadruple that. Like if you see something,
and don't
you
spend it on one
want,
bottle, right?
Oh God,
Buy
no.
break up that budget, buy a bunch of bottles, and enjoy it. And do like we said earlier, compare them, talk about them, split it up, and make the experience part of the make the tasting part of the experience rather. Exactly.
So that's my number 2 personally.
Yeah, I'll sort of piggyback that and say, I would say ignore ABV. A lot of people get caught up on that and they think, oh, geez, this is a barrel proof offering. This is 116 proof. I can't touch that. That's way above my league. Like, don't worry about that. Put that all out of your mind. You'll find pretty quickly that things will drink either above or below their proof point, and you will perceive them differently than what the label says. And getting caught up on a minor detail like that is about as catchy as getting caught up on the FOMO of a bottle that you think you have to have. Like thinking that you need to have a bottle or thinking that you shouldn't have one because of what it says on the label is a slippery slope.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And that hightails into my final point, which was don't get caught up in the price tag. Don't just because something's $100 in bourbon land. That's a pretty big trap. Like the $30 to $60 range, I think, is where some of the best bourbon you'll ever drink lives. And don't think that because something is twice as much as the bottle you're currently enjoying is going to be twice as good. There's some really expensive bourbon that's good, but there are not nearly as many of those as there are $40, $50 bottles that I think could just crush them all day long. So,
totally.
Take your time. Don't stretch your finances. Maybe, instead of grabbing that $150 bottle, grab that, 3 $50 bottles and then side by side them and see what you like by the end.
Totally. I mean, not everybody's going to be in the same retail pricing market wise. I mean, there's 17 or 18 different control states in the US. Those alone will have wildly different pricing and availability than other states. So, I mean, you kind of have to go by your market in some sense, but just don't get sucked in. Don't get caught up in this bottle's $80 and this one's $40. There's no way they could be on the same level, because you'll find, again, sort of like the proof point, like what it says on the price tag or on the label or on the ABV is not necessarily what's going to drive you home. So make sure that you're just kind of keeping it dialed back.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. So why don't you bring us home, John?
All right. I'm going to wrap this one up with a segue into next week. Upgrade your glasses. So next week, Jay and I are going to be breaking down whiskey glasses, tasting glasses, cocktail glasses, things of that nature, to kind of take a deeper dive into how that will impact the overall tasting and your experience with the whiskey itself. How taking the same exact spirit from one glass to another could give you a different experience. I think that's a huge step forward for a lot of whiskey drinkers. I personally love a tulip-shaped glass. It gives you a little bit more aromatics, and it just makes the overall sipping a little bit cleaner. You don't get quite as much of the ethanol punch straight in your face. I think that's a good way to go about it. But personally, that's one of the few things that I recommend, after the other things that we spoke on, is just get proper tasting glasses and don't just drink your whiskey, taste it.
Oh man, I love that. Well, that is a excellent teaser. I love how you did that. Check us out next Tuesday night. We have a great live episode. We tease a little bit. We've got some great glassware related content. But in the meantime, if you're looking for more from John, he is at the Bourbon Finder and thebourbonfinder.com. He's doing a lot of those great comparisons side by sides. And I'm Jay from Whiskey Raiders. Check us out at whiskeyraiders.com. We have your new news, articles, reviews, and the aggregate scoring, kind of like Rotten Tomatoes. And thanks for joining us, guys, for another great After Hours. And we will see you on Tuesday for Glassware Bonanza. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.